Let's just jump right in with our color selection for our greens here. We're using Misfits Green, Iosan Green, Bright Yellow Green, Nightshade Purple, and Flash Gets Yellow to get started here on our Foetid Bloat Drone. You can see it's already been primed black using Stynylrez Primer, and we're going to be mixing in a lot of flow improver as we go. We're using very thin paints. This is my first time lapse, so just thought I'd bring you through how I do a bit of my panel shading and modulation with the green colors I use on my Liquefactors and my Death Guard. So starting out, I'm bringing in a bit of green shade with Misfits Green. This is very dark, and this is setting up saturation for later layers. It will show through. So I've gotten green on most of the panels here. Overspray is not an issue, and I'm switching out to P3 Iosan Green, and we're going to reduce the amount of coverage we have. So we're building both the saturation of the greens and the value of the color as well. Now at this point I've switched out for our next green, which is Bright Yellow Green from Pro Acryl. You can see I'm getting a little bit of backflow in my airbrush. I need to clean that out. That's what the bubbling is. Besides that, I'm picking out high points and high ridges where I want the most light reflecting off of the panels for this latest layer, and we keep building in smaller and smaller layers as we go. So at this point, I'm going to bring in my last color for the greens, which is going to be Flash Gets Yellow. So even though this isn't green, this is what I like to call an enhancer color. I'm bringing this in very thin, very lightly, and I'm trying to bring more green saturation to the model and raising the value of it in certain spots. Again, I'm hitting spots where I think the light wants to reflect off. It's kind of a non-metallic way of thinking about it, but not going as hard or as deep into it as you would want to get a full metallic effect. Afterwards, you can see I've switched that out once more, and I've brought in Nightshade Purple here to bring into the recesses a little bit. This is kind of the final stage of doing most airbrushing, is going back in and hitting the shadows, so don't be afraid to go back in and touch those up a little bit. In fact, after the video, I went back in and enhanced the yellow a little bit more. At this point, I'm going to take over with a bit of hand brushing, and I'm going to bring Vallejo Model Color Violet into the mix and start base coating out a number of parts, mostly the organics on this model. Those will be airbrushed later, but you can see how I'm picking this out by hand, and then once this is all blocked in, I can go in and enhance that hand brushing with a little bit of airbrush layer. So you may have noticed as I was airbrushing the green that I broke out separate panels on the Mini by doing something called shooting the tangent. And that means shooting the airbrush spray over the edge of various bits of the model. This causes the cone of attack to hit at different angles, cause different shapes, different shadings as you apply the paint, different concentrations where you're actually intersecting the model with the paint stream. So one of the benefits that you get from this is that you can bring out edges where the model stops and enhance shadows by playing around with how you approach the angle of the model itself. This is one quick way to add in a lot of detail with your airbrush before going back in and enhancing that detail later with your traditional brush. starting to take the violet color to a couple of metal bits here as well. We'll do a bit of non-metallic metal, but in a purple fashion on some of the areas here of the mini to give it a little bit more character. So at this point, just comparing the colors to our other completed model that we had, and I'm going to break out the Averland Sunset and start blocking in the front icon on the Bloat Drone. This is a Nurgle fly icon, and once this is blocked in, we'll bring in some other yellows and some browns to make a non-metallic, kind of goldish, kind of non-metallic yellow, what have you, sort of effect here right on the front of it, which will look kind of fun. We'll probably bring in the same shades of yellow into the horns and bone bits of this mini as well. And we've yet to add some metallic basing, but there are a couple of pieces of trim that we'll base in with silver metallics. This is keeping true to a scheme that I've been working on for a while, so the colors are pretty locked in, but I do adjust from time to time, and I'm not scared to bring in other colors on this. Just these are pretty solid. Averland Sunset is just almost a cheat code yellow base tone. In fact, I like using it for basing a lot of things that end up being an off-white tone or even a white color, just for how well it covers and what a nice undertone it provides with its rich ochre. So just planning ahead for future tones here, getting things knocked out, and blocking them all in. Hey, and now we've got the icon all blocked in. We're going to break out some of our Nightshade purple, put that on our wet palette, mix it with a little bit of water, and take very thin amounts of it to the cracks and pitting in the armor plates of this mini. The reason that I use Nightshade purple is that it's nearly black and it's highly saturated, so it brings in a nice shade and interacts well with the green tones here on the mini. Bringing in black would bring in a much starker contrast, and that may be appropriate in some spots, but for the most part we'll be using our Nightshade purple to kind of tone down the greens and make some nice soft shades. We're going to bring out that violet once again, block out a few remaining bits here that I've missed from the previous step. And there you have it. This is the end of our first session painting on this bloat drone. I'm glad you could join me as we kind of sped through this, describing my process a little bit. Next steps will include doing metals, working on the eye panel, bringing in detail, doing some non-metallics, etc. So until next time, hey, click subscribe, click the links in the comments down below, and I'll have another one of these soon.